Good morning.
Good morning.
This pandemic is not over. It has touched some more members of our congregation so far, nothing serious that we know of, but thank you for continuing to keep distance and keep in mind how touchy this situation is at this time. So, this morning, we return to a series that is designed by Marcia McPhee from the Worship Design Studio. And Marcia is inviting us this Advent to consider how we are going to invite the Holy One, that little baby, God incarnate, into our lives in a special way. So I'm going to invite you to just pause for a moment and take a deep breath and prepare to worship. Is anyone out there feeling directionless, helpless, perhaps filled with anxiety, grieving, angry for no apparent reason, confused? A pandemic which lingers in a barrage of events and natural disasters beyond our control have put our souls on edge. And many of us are feeling lost and empty this year. We thought this would be over. So as we enter the Advent season, how can our church become a house where the holy will be born anew, a sacred space offering respite, sustenance, and care, opening the doors ever wider to those seeking shelter from the onslaught of life? No one church can do it all. No one church is called to meet every need of every person, but together we can continue to be a light for one another and for those who are seeking. So this Advent we study the biblical prophets that call us to care for our neighbors and make room in the inn. This season we open our own hearts to healing, and the lonely and frightened spaces within us are filled with the light of hope and peace and joy and love. In Bethlehem a stable waits, long ago and so today, where hatred weary people pray, love will come and lay there, and love that opens fists of hate, heaps of gold on beggars' plates, love that shows a kindly face to enemies and strangers. Today, we offer the light of hope to illumine the door of welcome. May this light shine in our hearts, in our lives, and in our church. May hope awaken us to possibilities and lead us to greater hospitality. There is room in this inn, a house for the holy. So may the last of stables know, brightly that their light may go, for miles in the darkness so, love will find its way there. The hope of Christ be with you.
And also with you.
As we rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, as we rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, I invite you to pass a wave of peace to the people around you and the people who are worshiping at home as well.
Our first reading today is from Jeremiah 33, verses 14 through 16. The time is coming, declares the Lord, when I will fulfill my gracious promise with the people of Israel and Judah. In those days and at that time, I will raise up a righteous branch from David's line, who will do what is just and right in the land. In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will live in safety. And this is what he will be called: the Lord is our righteousness. We continue with our second reading from Psalms 25, 4 and 5. Make your ways known to me, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth. Teach it to me, because you are the God who saves me. I put my hope in you all day long.
All the people on the streets, hustling all day to go home and feed the families.
a reading from Luke 21, verses 29 through 33. Then he told them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is already near. So also when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away.
So hope. Hope is where we are today, right? I find this passage interesting, this gospel passage, because he's talking about when you see the shoots of the leaves, when you see but what about before you see the shoots and the leaves coming forth? What about this time of the year? You know, I know it's probably different where that gospel writer was living than in Minnesota. But we don't see this just gradual little turnover of some leaves. We here see complete release. We see complete loss. We see a world around us that looks like it will never, ever, ever come back to life again. We see bare trees and frozen ground. And sometimes it feels like an eternity. And that's where we live. And people say, why on earth do you live there? So I was able to listen to these dialogues that, a new thing that Marcia did this year was to dialogue with a couple biblical scholars. And one of them was, you see this reading that I just talked about, Marcia left out of this year. She said she felt like people were already too much there, too much in the things are going to just explode around you. And she said she felt like people were already there and we didn't need to hear it again. But that's the first Sunday of Advent. That's always the first Sunday of Advent. Things are exploding all around you. People are dying. People are angry. People are listless. And it's all around us, and everybody I talk to says they feel the same way. And that's where we are, especially on this year. So she talked to Grace Imatio, who is an African-American biblical scholar. And so she said, well, I left this out. I left this out, and Grace said, yes. And I'm like, it is indeed doom and gloom for the old story. It's doom and gloom for the old story. So if you are invested in the old story, she continues, then it's going to be doom and gloom because the old story has to go. That's all there is to it. The old story has to go. And that's the beginning of Advent. The old story has to go if we are going to make room again for God to come into our hearts, for the baby to be born. The first thing is we need to make room. We need to make room in our lives. We need to make room in our hearts. We are making room in our houses, right? You got to move something away from the window so you can put the Christmas tree there. Whatever was there for the last 10 to 11 months, depending on how long you leave your tree up, You know, you gotta make room. You've got to clear out the old if you're going to make room for what God has to show us in this new life. And it's hard. There's no question it's hard, because what we know is what our routine is what makes us comfortable. Even if it's something we don't really like about ourselves or about our lives or about our routines, it's what we know. And to break those patterns, to break that habit is really, really hard work. Which is why these Advent readings just feel like, don't make me go there. Don't make me go there. But how do we get to the next place if we never leave where we are? I'm going to read you one more paragraph by Grace. She says, so when you say making room in Advent 1, I started looking at this text, Jeremiah texts and the Psalm, wondering how is it telling me to make room? Because there's a whole bunch of things I got to let go of. If I'm going to make room, there's a lot of things in my old story that have got to go. And then she goes into this discussion of our society. Attitudes like, who is important? How the setup is, who gets the big seat, who gets the recognition in our lives. Even if in the way we talk about people, all of it, a day is coming when that old story, those old social constructs, don't work anymore. In the new story, the social constructs have to go. So the making room is the old narrative going. And she says, I'm sorry, you've got to go back to kindergarten, right? Everything you learned is wrong. Because it's all based on that old story. So, as I was listening to her, all I could think of was the whole defund the police narrative, right? And how that got going. And so many other things in our lives, in our society, that we never get around to making better because we're not ready to just completely let go of the way we've set it up for a whole new way to be. And that's just one example, and oh no, I'm not a defund the police person. I just, I think that was the dumbest, I've said it before, I think that was the dumbest phrase ever uttered by somebody. Understood where it was coming from, but it just didn't get us to a full conversation of what it means to let go. And we're afraid of letting go, so we just don't have those conversations in our society, in our culture, in our families, in our churches. We don't take the time to imagine, what if? What if we were willing to let go of everything that we think we know to make room for the holy to be born in our hearts? What if we didn't have that little record player in our head? Okay, I'm old, I just said record player, didn't I? They're not called that anymore, are they? What are they? Vinyl players? I don't know. So we have that little message going around and around in our head because somebody told us this is the way it's got to be. This is the way our economy's got to be. This is the way our family has to work. This is the way gender works. This is the way sexuality works. This is the way, this is the way, this is the way. And we've been taught all of these things. And one group argues for this, and one argues for this, and one argues for this. And maybe the first thing we have to let go of to make room is the old tapes that we're playing in our heads. Maybe we need to be willing to say, maybe that wasn't the one and only truth about everything we've learned. And that's a scary, scary place to go. Because once you start letting go of one thing, where do you stop? You stop when you see the child being born. You stop when you see the holy growing out of that stump of Jesse, which is another great biblical imagining. How many of you have ever tried to kill a tree by cutting it off? It doesn't happen, does it? There's always a new shoot. Right? So when we see the old tree being cut down, we're thinking, oh, I'm going to miss that tree. And what the prophets are asking us to do is to not think about that tree I'm going to miss, but I wonder what shoot is coming next. When we see the holy, when we see that shoot starting to grow, then we know we're onto something. And it's okay that we had to let go. It's okay that we had to make room. Because what's new is going to be so much more beautiful than what was. That's what we begin today. This season of Advent. This season of making room. This season of letting go. Questioning everything. And in the midst, finding the holy. Finding that small child again. I will offer an opportunity if anyone has wisdom to share, because the old school said only the preacher has something wise to say. The new way is that I have a room full of people who are wise and can see something that I can't.
I had an experience this morning when I got up. My Christmas cactus had its first bloom on it. So there's hope out there.
Hope in the first bloom of the Christmas cactus. Absolutely.
You what? You gave her away.
Oh. We can see it everywhere if we just pause for a moment. The Holy has not abandoned us, and we who live in this place maybe have a little benefit because we've been through enough cycles to know that even when it looks dead outside, we know spring will come. We know those new leaves will come. We just have to be patient and learn to see what's coming and to imagine what will be next. So, yes.
So Ruby and I have been given a really unique opportunity to break generational curses and generational trauma within our family. And Ruby is moved with me, and we're learning, like everything that we learned living with my parents was wrong, and toxic and abusive, and it's really hard for them to see that. So there is a lot of
exciting. Very exciting. I'm so excited for both of you. Yeah, and that's the hope. That's the vision of hope. That we see what was does not have to be. And are you comfortable with me sharing that, knowing that it's
Absolutely.
okay? For those who could not hear, she was talking about generational trauma, generational toxicity in families, and that she and Ruby are now living together in working day after day after day at turning that around and changing that pattern within their family so that something new will be born. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's hard work, isn't it?
And it's really neat because me and Ruby have like a special bond because our trauma came from the same person. And so like when one of us is struggling, like maybe we're in an interaction with that person, the other one can see it and we both know it's time to go. So it's kind of neat that you know, we have that bond together, you know.
This gospel stuff, these stories that we read every Sunday, powerful, powerful reminders of the hope that's all around us, of the life that we can have if we just stick together and encourage one another in growth. So, thank you, and may it be so.
Make of my heart a stable, a house for the holy, a warm and sturdy place for hope to live and grow.
In this moment, we open the doors of our hearts to honesty before God about what we have done and left undone that created less hope in a hurting world. So take out a moment and breathe out the regret of those moments. And breathe in the life-giving, forgiving Spirit of God. And out again with the peace of Christ, sending that into the world.
Make of my life a stable, a house for the holy, a warm and sturdy place for hope to live and grow.
In this moment, we open the doors of our lives to the call of the Spirit, inviting us to become more than we can ask or imagine. So I invite you once again to breathe out our fear and breathe in the courage of the Spirit of God, and out again with the peace of Christ.
Make of our church a stable, a house for the holy, a warm and sturdy place for hope to live and grow.
In this moment, we open the doors of this church, filling it with the compassion of Christ for all those who are struggling. And so I'm wondering if there are prayers to be brought forward this morning. Prayers of gratitude for nice Thanksgiving days and time with family and friends. In gratitude, all of the people around this nation, we hold you, Lord of Christ. Prayers of celebration for Hans and Brianna and Haley and Aaron, both couples are expecting in the spring of 2022. And so Hans and Brianna and Haley and Aaron and the ones we have yet to meet, we hold you by the light of Christ. Prayers for Kurt and Jack, and we hope that they are well soon. Kurt and Jack, we hold you by the light of Christ. I'm wondering if there are any other prayers that did not get written down this morning we need to lift.
I want to pray for my mother, that God can soften her heart. And if He can't soften her heart, or she won't accept it, God just protect me and my kids.
Just offer prayers for Amanda's family. We hold you in the light of Christ. May the advent of compassion be born in us, reside within us, and move outward from us to meet the needs of the world, making a house for the holy that is each and every child of God. We pray this in the name of Jesus, who taught us to pray, Creator of all that is. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Vice moderator,
Do we have a leadership moment?
for vice moderator. Yes,
I am so sorry. As we've been talking the last few weeks, the annual meeting is arriving, and with that comes opportunities and hope for new leadership. I am currently the vice moderator, and I want to tell you just a little bit about that. There isn't much. It's a very easy job. You go to the council meetings, participate, and we hope that you will, if you take that position, that you would consider moving into the moderator's position that year. So when you're a vice moderator, it's a great opportunity to learn what is involved in being the moderator itself, and what does it mean to be part of council. So I think it's a great learning opportunity. And also, we do ask that if the moderator is unable to be at a council meeting, the vice moderator would take over. Again, we have everything there for you to help you do that. And council is a pretty supportive, casual group. And so, as you think about opportunities for leadership, please don't be frightened about being moderator. Several years ago, when I was asked to do that, my thought was, that's not my thing. That's not what my strong suit. It may or may not have been my strong suit, but boy did I learn during that opportunity. And part of that is being vice moderator so that you have that opportunity to learn. So we hope that you will seriously consider the position of vice moderator. Thank you.
And so we come to our time of offering of ourselves and our resources again, and remind you we are not passing a basket. There is a basket in the back if you choose to support the ministries of this church. If you're watching at home and choose to support the ministries of this church, you can do so on our website. So then there is the offerings that we are giving of our lives. And so the opportunities that are coming up in this place. We are going to have another Empty Bowls building. If you want to come and build a bowl, that's on December 4th, this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. It's really a fun time. There's no pressure, and there's no guarantee, just by the way, so you can't come and build your bowl and say, oh, it's going to be just perfect, because sometimes, like the one I built last year, you put it in the kiln and it just goes, and you don't know why, but there it is. There's no guarantee, but it's a fun day together, building bowls, and so please consider that. If you would like a little stretching exercise or just calming your spirit exercise, Tai Chi Fit is Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. And you noticed our sock being filled. That is our Advent mission. And so remember to bring socks of any size, style, color, and drop them in the box in the entranceway, and the children will bring them forward. And I wonder if we should practice that little signal. We are going to sing so that children know when to come forward with the socks. And it's just that. We'll definitely do the whoa-whoa-whoas, okay? So the kids know when to come forward with the socks.
Tonight, I didn't put on your sheet.
Yep, got it right here. So, there is another thing that's happening. I've been talking with Hans Peterson, who is the new pastor at River of Hope Lutheran Church, and we have decided that because people are feeling stressed this year, we are going to have this sanctuary open for quiet time and reflection. From 6 to 6:30, it'll just be quiet. If you want to come and have your own private prayers, please feel free to do that. At 6:30, we'll do just a short service of some type, maybe just a song and a reading and some prayer. And then we'll have, when that is finished, then the sanctuary will continue to be open until 7:30 in the evening for anybody who just feels like they need some quiet time in the semi-dark with some candles. Come and light a candle if you have a special prayer that you need to lift to God at this time. And on December 15th, then, we will come together for an Advent service for the two churches. And 7? Did we decide? 7 o'clock? I'll get back to you on the time on that. But
It's on the last screen.
it's on the last screen. Yeah, there you go. details aren't my forte, did you notice that?
6:30.
6:30, okay, so at 6:30 on December 15th, we will have a combined service, a quiet service. Many churches have a longest night or a blue Christmas, they will call it. We are just calling this an Advent service, and it's a time of waiting and anticipation. But also just bringing our two congregations together to collaborate on ministry and life. So please block off those times if you feel that's something that would benefit you at this time of the year. Are there any other announcements? If not, each week of this series we're going to close out with a Christmas carol. And yes, there is the constant debate, Advent is not yet the birth of Christ. But as we prepare our homes and this house for the holy, we live in the already and not yet. So we already know the rest of the story, and yet we have not seen the fulfillment of a time when suffering ends. And so today we're going to sing O Little Town of Bethlehem. And it's a carol written by Phillips in 1865 after a horseback ride between Jerusalem and Bethlehem on Christmas Eve. She has given us a verse. There was an original verse that he wrote, which was not included in any hymnal I have ever experienced, but especially poignant for our theme. It's where children pure and happy pray to the blessed child, where misery cries out to thee, Son of the Mother mild, where charity stands watching and faith holds wide the door. The dark night wakes, the glory breaks, and Christmas comes once more. So let us remember that it was in a little, unassuming town where the Holy was housed, and so we too can offer light and hope and a place where faith holds wide the door.
Silence
and in your life. May God, Christ's humble first dwelling, remind you of the plenty that you already know. And may the Spirit lead you into more possibility and hospitality than you can possibly imagine, making room in the inn for everyone. May it be so for you, may it be so for us, and may it be so for this church and this community and this world. Amen.